Instagram. Sorry. There's like a lag between the Instagram and the YouTube stuff. So it should give us just a second. Come on. There we go. All right. So you won't see any comments on Instagram. I will. I'll read them out if we get good stuff.
Okay.
And then we should start getting people. Hey, we got people joining right now. And hey, as everybody's coming in, sorry about the sort of late start. You guys know I like to get started right at 8, but we had some issues with Mark. Well, Mark had some issues. So first, hi, happy Thursday, everyone. Mark, thanks for being here. As everyone joins, I want to before I get into anything here and start talking just you, I want to tell everyone here, hey buddy, Ryan, I have decided that I am changing sort of I'm changing the name of this. I was calling it Live Maker Talk because that's what my stress was doing these live talks, but I've decided that I'm going to start just focusing this on, I'm going to call it the Maker Origin Stories, or MOS as they did in the Army. I like the Navy stuff, but so anyway, so that's me telling everybody we're gonna do Maker Origin Stories. That's the new name of this. Boom, and as one of the videographers, I'm going to say that one of the video picture people of the Maker community, he who takes so many pictures of us. Mark, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for sorry about the delay.
Hey, you know what? Yeah, I mean it never goes the way it's supposed to. Hey, Vern, we got a whole lot of great people here tonight. So let's start with you. As as the new name goes, as the new idea is, Mark, you come to Maker Camp every year and you take these amazing pictures. And the first thing that so many of us want to know is, where did you get your start doing these great pictures? How did you get into this? What is your origin story?
Well, I kind of fell into it in high school. So obviously, I've only been out of high school a couple of years, as you can tell.
You graduated, right? I thought you graduated in 2015.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, my dad gave my brother a camera and myself a camera, so we both got Nikon FE2s. So if you're familiar with that old school camera, there was one black one and there was one silver one. I think I had the silver one, and I think he had the black one. And then we just started from there. I took a bunch of pictures in high school. I had a very tolerant high school photo teacher. I ended up being his a teacher's assistant for one period, and then I was like in yearbook. So my senior year was half of it was spent in the dark room or taking pictures around the school. And then went to college for some international studies, because I'd done some exchange to Japan in high school a couple times.
Oh, that's cool.
And I had intended at some point to live there, but it just at the end of a year exchange in college, I decided to come back here and kind of push the photography full time. Then I went down to LA for school at the Art Center. Same school as Design is Blank, so we have that in common. And then started working professionally in various different studios as mostly a lot of product stuff, some architecture, advertising, wide range, anything you can think of. Really, was just as the commercial world goes, you need a picture of it. I would come in and take a picture. Then was in California till I don't know 2016 maybe. Hopped on a motorcycle, camped across the U.S. for a couple months. Ended up in Cleveland. And then at Soulcraft, they in the same building as Skidmark Garage, which was the reason I stopped there because I had to work on a clutch. And then it just one thing led to another. I had some stuff set up for another event, a couple weeks before, and Soulcraft was kind enough to let me leave it set up. And then I was working on my bike one night, and I see these people walking around. And I don't recognize them, and I'm like, "Ah, you guys got a cool look. You want to come up and get a portrait?" And so I think I took one person's portrait, um, and then a couple minutes later, kind of a herd of them kind of came up to me, and they're like, "Hey, were you that guy taking black and white pictures?" And I was like, "I was. You want to get some?" So we went upstairs again, and half an hour later, everybody's up there drinking beers, and Lincoln Electric had brought them there to see how social media marketing was going to work for them, and if this was going to be a viable thing.
Okay.
Um, so there was a bunch of different makers there, probably 20 people, maybe 25. Um, and I hadn't really heard of the movement at that point. Um, and then the next year, Lincoln Electric actually invited me to take portraits at their 2019 spring make. Craig Coffey brought me in on that. So I shot that there, and then a couple months later, I get an email from Patrick and Jimmy saying, "Hey, we're going to put together this thing at the Blackthorn." Austin, whose family owns the Blackthorn, he had come up with a concept, kind of making it a
Yeah.
destination event, and they said, "Come on up, do whatever you want to do. We got a place for you." So it sounded fun, and my motto is to say, if it sounds fun, I'm going to do it. I'm going to say yes to it. So little did I know that it was going to become my favorite weekend of the year. So
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people's favorite weekend.
yeah.
So that's interesting. I'm curious. Two things along with this story. First, did you take pictures along your trip across the U.S.? Because I'm sure those have to be just an amazing series of shots.
I did. I had all my gear. I had everything ready to go. Um, and then it stopped being about that. Like, it stopped being about
Yeah,
taking pictures. It wasn't. It was more me resetting and just kind of experiencing and really being in the moment.
yeah,
Um, so most of the pictures I took were on my phone. If you go to my other feed, that's R66TAT, and ask for an invite, you can check it out. Um, I started that strictly for that trip because it was going to be heading Route 66 from the West Coast to Chicago, and then kind of up into like Nova Scotia, maybe
right.
Newfoundland, and then down to the
Oh wow,
Trans-American Trail, which starts in the Carolinas and then goes across to Oregon, kind of off-road. So it was going to be kind of the two major uh, road trips across the U.S. And I just needed some time to get away and reset, um, and kind of look for maybe another area that I wanted to live outside of California.
that's crazy. I mean that's such a great idea. I'm just gonna go. I want to go and have a good time, and so I I'm sticking to all this stuff. Like I have three different things I want to go to. The first is
Yep.
I love the idea of you just randomly going, "Hey guys, come on up," and that's how you started taking pictures of people in this way. Were you taking pictures and shots of people, randomly here and there, or was this really the first time you started focusing like
Um,
that?
well, because I had always taken pictures of
Yeah,
my friends and family, and commercially to some extent. But I kind of ended up specializing more in like product location,
right.
um, stuff like that. And the portrait thing was just really something I had kind of put aside because I was working all the time, and it was mainly product stuff. When I got to Cleveland and I was a Skidmark member, I was like, "Hey, you guys need some pictures of yourselves as members, and so we can put stuff up." So during if they had like a party or something, I'd do my seamless setup, and um, just whoever came in, I'd get pictures of them. And so that's one of the ways I was trying to introduce myself to Cleveland, is what I was
Yeah, yeah.
bringing to it, and kind of networking, and kind of just kind of getting back into it as far as being able to establish a kind of a connection with the people. And the best part of my job, I continually say this again and again, is just being able to meet people
Yeah.
and hearing their stories. Because um, you'll probably be shocked to know that much like nobody else at Maker Camp, is really an introvert. Like
What?
I'm shy. I'm like, if it was at a party, I'd be the quiet guy in the corner, just being like watching, and not saying anything. Because um, I've always really just enjoyed, connecting on one, but I've never really um, been outgoing and that way. But through this process, I've kind of discovering the personality that I got from my mom that I never really realized, because she would talk to anybody, and
Yeah.
she loved talking, and that was never what my personality was growing up. I was always very uh, not standoffish, but just if I didn't have anything important to say, I wasn't going to say it. I didn't need to like say anything to hear my own voice.
So, do you, in terms of your pictures of people, do you
Mhm.
like? Okay, a couple people said, my favorite pictures are Mark, the ones that you've taken at Maker Camp. You're the
Mhm.
only person. A couple people said you're the only person to make us look good. As a matter of fact, my picture right now, I'm going to be in Vegas in
Mhm.
July for this thing called AWFS, and
Mhm.
one of the pictures I gave them was one of the pictures you took, and that's what they put up there.
Oh,
So
great. Awesome.
yeah, and I love it, right? So these are really professional grade pictures for those of us at Maker Camp, and it's the first time we're getting sort of a headshot. Do you feel like uh, it helps you to get to know the person and really talk to them in order to know their personality a little bit to get the pictures, or do you see that their personality sort of comes out? Like, what's your thought and process here?
Well, so one of the things that, so at Maker Camp, as you're well aware,
Hmm.
um, it's not a studio setting. It's
Right.
not a controlled environment. There's, we had the flood year, we have wind years, we have cold years, and I'm basically in a covered open air space.
Yeah.
So um, I, the first year that I showed up there, they had, you know one outlet that I could use. Like, literally I could plug in my strobe. So I had a truck full of what I would do in a studio. I had, you know, but 95% of that stuff stayed in the truck because I didn't have any power for it. Plus, it was going to get blown over because I mean, some of those winds blowing through there are
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and so that year really refocused my intention of what I wanted to do there, and that was um, I can make, I can light it. I can, I can put 20 lights on you if we're in a studio setting, but it doesn't matter if the person doesn't feel like a real person, if it doesn't reflect their personality. So it drove me to really focus on um, bringing out their personality, connecting with the person, really listening, really finding the value in those moments of being able to, ask whatever I wanted and have
Yeah.
them talk about whatever they want. And I'm going to be, 100% real with that person. I'm going to let them be 100% real with me. And I'm just going to, wherever energy they have, I'm going to bring that to that picture, hopefully. Um, but a lot of times, I think that what a lot of people don't necessarily understand um, is that you have a very, very small amount of time
Yeah.
to connect with somebody before they start to think about it too much. And when they start thinking about it, then you don't get the natural thought. Or if you try to pose people, because I tell people I never really try to pose, but if I ask you to stand one way or another, it's kind of giving you a place to start, but it's not really what I'm looking for.
Right.
I'm looking for you to develop, just that gives you something to think about because maybe you need some distraction. Um, and so through that process, I've, really just kind of developed a way to very quickly connect with people, um, kind of see as they walk up, even the choices that I want to make with them, um, maybe to open them up in one way. Um, I have one of my favorite stories, and Rob may tell it a little differently, but um, this was, a couple years ago, first Maker Camp, maybe. Could have been the second one. I'm not quite sure. I think it was the first one. Um, and here comes, babyface Rob comes up to the set, and he's, kind of like sitting there, kind of shy, and I was taking a couple of pictures, and I was like, "Hey, can you smile a little bit?" And he's like, and this is how I tell it. I don't know what Rob's story is, but we kind of differ some on the details, but the gist of it is he's um he's like, I don't really smile that much, he's kind of like quiet, and I'm like, then you can go fuck yourself. And he just busts up with the biggest smile. And that's the shot I got. Because I
Yeah.
knew that like being transparent and being direct is the best way to go with people. I don't want to beat around the bush. We don't have
Mhm.
time. I've got 20 people standing behind me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I want to give you the best product I can. And so that really just let's cut to the bullshit. If it's not going to work, I'm going to say it's not going to work. We're going to move on to something else.
Right.
And it's whether it's me or whether it's you, it's sometimes just you know, you just have to get past that idea that people are judging themselves. So that's why I don't want people to look at the camera when
Yeah,
they're, or look at the laptop when I'm shooting.
yeah.
I want them just to be in the moment with me. I don't want them to keep like checking on how they look, and it's really the energy that I want. So
Well,
that's what I try to bring out.
you do a great job with it, and I like that how you know, one of the things that a lot of people who do things really well is they have a hard time articulating sometimes what it is that is setting them up for success. And I love hearing you say how you're trying to get people out of their own heads, because that is honestly so important. I want to ask two questions.
Mhm.
Brian asked a question, and I like that a lot, and I want to come to it in just a minute. My other friend Brian says he guarantee the first time you take my picture, my eyes are closed. My wife always yells at me for it,
Right.
and that's that. Yeah, that goes without saying. So you know all these pictures are black and white,
Mhm.
most of them. What is your
Yeah, I do that because I think everybody looks good in black and white. Um, and I think it separates it from the normal pictures that you get with cameras and stuff. And I've been doing it since 2018, maybe 2017, 18. So in a small way, I'd like to say that I'm the person responsible for all the little black and white profile pics that people have all over the internet. So
oh
I would love to be able to track the data to see if I could connect it back in some way to me.
100% with it within the maker community?
Yeah.
You know, at least the East Coast maker community, because you know it's harder for you West Coast to get out here. But um, yeah,
Except I do go to the Portland maker meetups and take portraits there too. So I've
well,
taken the last couple of Christmas pictures.
but I mean that's it. Like it is, you definitely have caused that to happen, and as Greg here says, you bring your pictures bring out the soul of the subject. It really helps it show. Now, I again, we all appreciate that, and let me ask Brian's question, and then I want to come back to this other one. Brian said, "Hi, Mark. The exposure of your photos that I have seen are spot on. Great job. What software do you use for any editing that you do?" And before you answer that, I want to say that at Maker Camp, I have seen you just go and play with it real quick as we're doing it, and your
Yeah.
eye for it also is amazing. Like how you look at that shadow and say, "This is what I'm looking for."
Well, I think so. I'll start off in two ways. Um, since I'm viewing those images in my head as black and white, and I have, you know, the experience that I have shooting film and knowing what it should look like in a traditional photo format, and that's the feel that I'm looking for. I don't look at it like, you know, you take a picture on your phone and then you go to one of the black and white filters. And for me, that you're missing the full experience of what like shooting film used to be like. You used to have to decide black and white or color, and then you would have to go down the decision tree of what's going to make that look the best. So you're going to like color differently than you're going to like black and white. It's just the angles need to be slightly modified. You need to have a little more fill in one way or another, and the contrast ranges have to be different. So I use Capture One. I've been using it since the first version. It was one of the first software that came out for the commercial photographer to shoot tethered in the studio. It's come a long way. I'm really happy with it. And so I make my own recipes as far as the black and white goes. So I kind of know what I want to do, and I know when I'm lighting. And each year, like if you've been there multiple years, you'll see that each year the lighting is a little bit different, the background's a little bit different. 2 years ago, I I got tired of one background, so I lit it so that I could have two backgrounds. One was going to be dark charcoal, and one was going to be a white. And so depending on how that person was standing, I would have a couple of different lighting scenarios so that I could put them in one with the white background, or I could rotate 90 degrees and shoot them in a black and white and a dark background. Um, and that was a little mental game for me, but I also don't want everybody to say, oh, he shoots the same thing every year, or I can't tell the difference between the years. I want them to have, a different value each year. I want people to come in, have a different experience with, the images that they're getting. Sometimes it's a little more formal, sometimes it's a little more casual. And then this last year, I took like white tarp and I kind of made a cyc, but it kind of turned on your side. So it was kind of a wraparound corner.
Okay.
Um, And that way I could get, either really contrasty light from one side, or I could get really like front glowy fashion light from the other side. And again, it gives everybody something different year to year. It also pushes me a little bit in that environment, what I can do.
Right. I mean, it is really interesting to see the different colors, to see the different versions. And again, once once Maker Camp is over, the pictures
Yeah.
come out. We're all looking at them, and hey, I love your picture, buddy. And we're showing them off there. So, and the group photos that you do are amazing. So it's a lot of fun to see that stuff. Now, one of the questions I have, all right, let me ask this first. My other friend
Mhm.
Brian just said, "Who has been your favorite person to photograph, or your favorite photo?" Which I think is a great one.
Um, well, my favorite photos maybe are different than what you might expect. I mean, from my point of view, what I really want is um, I'm looking for that moment when someone is looking at their pictures for the first time and they stop and you can see that it's really hitting them emotionally. And like they may be seeing like, you know, one of their parents in that picture. They might see, what a part of themselves that they haven't seen before, or they feel really proud of how I make them look and the moment that we can share.
Yeah.
And so that's when I view as a success. So each time I see that or I have that experience, um, and there's times when I have people who tear up on set because it can be really emotional to really feel like you've been represented accurately and seen in those moments, and maybe you haven't been in the past. And so that's the other motivating factor why I work so hard is to try and get those moments, and that's what makes it a favorite for me is when it's a favorite of that person.
I love that. I mean, I think about some of the photos that I've seen from you, and it's that raw close up, just I don't know, just the skin, the tone, the texture of the skin, the shadows, all of that. I honestly, they every time I see them, any of the photos, I'm just amazed by it. Gary says, "Mark, you are amazing." Brian, that you answered the question, said thank you, and
Well,
uh,
because so one of the things I think, like, so you had some photo questions, and so
yeah,
I
I want to get
wanted
into
I wanted to just start by saying like you the thing that people maybe don't realize when they're taking pictures, when they're not thinking about it from a professional standpoint. It's like, you point it and you take a picture of something you like. Um, so as far as like, you wanted a few tips for both either your Etsy store or whatever.
yeah,
But in a personal environment, when you're out or say you're going on a hike or something, you're trying to take a picture of a waterfall. Well, if you take a picture with your phone, it's generally a pretty wide frame of that picture. So, or if you have a camera with one lens, you can crop into it, but you just step forward. Every time you want to take a picture, just step forward a little bit. Crop out physically what your brain is cropping out of your peripheral vision because it's narrowing for your attention span. So look at what is in front of you and what is attracting you. Is it a detail of something or is it the overall vista? But just take a couple of steps closer. Just get a little bit of that extra information that's distracting out of the frame. And that's why I never really crop my pictures outside the camera. I'm usually always cropping as I'm shooting because I don't have time to go through. And I was just looking through last year's
yeah.
pictures. I shot 6,200 pictures last year,
It's
and I
just
shot 6,200 pictures the year before. So I have thousands and thousands of pictures at the end of that weekend. I cannot go through and try and
no,
reframe every picture. So that's what I have. I've always done that. I've always kind of
yeah,
seen it in the camera. I don't like that. I take it out, but it's in the camera. So that's tip number one. And then as far as like, when you're shooting your products, and I know a lot of makers, they sell either on their website or on Etsy and things like that. Um, the hardest thing for people that don't do it every single day is to look at the contrast of something, the shadow side of it, how it's being filled. A lot of times people they put lights all over it and it's bright and it's poppy, but it ends up being flat because there's no directionality to the picture. So start with one main light. um, Sometimes depending on the setup, if I'm shooting something like a portrait, I might actually start with the edge light that I can see the shape of it and then just use that front light as a fill almost and not as the main.
I
It,
see.
it just depends on what you're looking for. So don't just take two lights up slam them in there, you know, start with one, then take the second light in. And if you don't have the ability to take that power down, just move it further back, because lights at the same distance are going to have the same intensity if they're the same light.
Right.
So if you move it back, then it will reduce the amount that it's filling it. So sometimes you just pull back the light that you want on your shadow side, and then that's a nice, easy way to convey adding that little bit of contrast. Or, you know, use a black card. You know, if you want to add contrast, take around your products, if you're doing a cutting board or something like that, and it's
Yeah.
on a white seamless, you're going to see those sides bounce off that light that you're seeing. So the contrast range is going to be flatter. You're going to see, you know, cutting boards are flat and they're usually oiled or glossy. And so the top surface looks flat. So take a black card and drop it behind your subject where that it's be reflecting the white of the background.
Yeah.
And then it'll be out of frame as you drop it lower and lower until it just starts to peek into the frame of your camera. And that'll control that top contrast on your products.
Huh. Wow. See, I think that's. I mean, I always thought that more light was better, and I see what you're saying. And,
I mean, more light's fine, but you have to shape it. You have to, why
yeah.
are you putting it in there? So
Well, and
just
that's
think
the
about
thing.
the intention.
That's the thing that your experience gives you. I do want to one more piece for you. Alabama Papa Chad,
I
my
see
guy.
his, yeah, I see
Yeah.
his. Because I figured you said I couldn't see it on mine, but so I used it. I'm
Yeah.
watching your live stream on my thing, so I can see those too.
So I what he said is perfect, and I think that goes for so many of us here, and you can see that. So I did want to bring that up. I think that's a really great point. So how is photographing something like, so you did product placement, you did buildings, right? How is that different than doing these photographs of people at Maker Camp?
Well, so from a technical side of things, it's not different, and there's a consideration in both. If you're shooting product, though, you're trying to highlight the product, you're trying to shape it, and it's very much
What we just
a
talked
much
about?
more of a technical side of things. Um, and so in that regard, it's kind of my skill base of what I've learned, the knowledge, my experience, things like that. Um, on a portrait side of things, the first thing I do in the morning, every morning at Maker Camp, is I get up and I kind of reset myself, and that's done through a couple of different things. Just kind of stepping away. Sometimes I'm listening to music. Sometimes I'll walk around a little bit. Sometimes I'll head down to the milk run, have a nice quiet breakfast, because I can't reset if I'm in the dining hall with everybody else. Plus, the dining hall doesn't open until 8:30, and
Right.
I want to start. I want to get out there. I want to get on that set and be shooting as soon as I can. So I don't want to wait that long. So I go down to the milk run, and um, I kind of take my ego and I put it away, because it doesn't matter. My ego doesn't matter at all during these sets, because if my ego is in the way, if you're seeing that in the picture, then I failed, because it's not,
Right.
if the picture's not about me, it's about the person in the picture. So I always want every single picture that's a portrait to be, all that energy is from that person, not from me.
Right.
And so that's the mental switch that I have to turn off every time.
I don't know how you go as long as you do, because you're there all day long doing that.
Yeah, I was up till like 2 or 3 in the morning this last time,
And
and usually I stop at 1, but I had
yeah.
Rain came over and we had a chat, so we chatted from like 2 to 3 in the morning.
Well, I mean, the other part of this is you have to be exhausted because you're making these constant decisions and changes with each person the whole way through. I mean, that's just like your
Yeah, but I
mind
love
is
it. I love it. Yeah, there's
obviously
yeah.
you wouldn't do it if you didn't. When is your hey, Rob just joined. We were just talking about Rob.
Yeah.
We were just talking about you, buddy. Your baby face. Um, when is your? I'm curious. When is the best time you think
Mhm,
this is for me personally to know this?
mhm.
When do you think the best time to take the photos are, during the day or at night? When do you feel like you get the best shots?
Um, they're very different. So, um, I think in the evening I get more group shots, because I think people, they've had dinner, they've stopped, because during the
Yeah.
day it's like you come in between whatever event you're going to be going to. So it's more the ones and two people. Um, in the evening, after things, kind of settled down in the tents, people have had dinner. There may be an adult beverage consumed, one or two by people. Um, but then I get a bunch, like the people come in as groups, and so then you get a lot more of that really dynamic um, interaction between people,
Right.
um, and that has a certain amount of energy. But if you're looking for like a really good, portrait, something you want to use for, your website, or if you want to use it for, whatever your Instagram profile, or whatever, I'd probably recommend those more in the morning, because even though they're black and white, like your eyes um, and your skin and everything look better if you're before the drinks, because your eyes are just a little sleepier. You
Yeah.
will get a little bit of red hue that will show up, but for the ones where it is more of a professional setting, if it's more
Yeah.
formal, then probably during the day.
Well, that's good to know. Mark, sorry, my buddy Ryan has a question.
Uh-huh.
I just needed to. I really felt this was important. My friend Mara from Silver Hair and Sawdust is here, and I'm just proud of her because it's 8:30 and she's still up. I know that normally at 8:30 on our time she's in bed, so I
Mhm.
just wanted to congratulate her for being awake. Um,
Taking one for the team.
Yeah, right. And then a couple people saying hi to Rob. So, Mark, Ryan said, so Mark, how does it make you feel to make so many of us feel so special with your photography at Maker Camp when so many of us don't have that feeling throughout the rest of the year? I mean, I feel special throughout the rest of the year, but
Right.
your photos really do. Again, coming back to this idea that we already said, they show up on everybody's profile for weeks to come afterwards, right? How does that make you feel in terms of looking at this and seeing this sea of your work?
I'm incredibly proud of the community. I'm incredibly proud of the work that I do in the community and the contributions that I make.
Oh yeah,
Um, but really, I'm really proud of the people that come up and have the courage to get their picture taken, because I know it can be a challenge for a lot of people. A lot of people are shy; they're used to taking their own pictures. Um, I
yeah,
had a really great, I had a really amazing experience um, this last year with DIY Huntress and DIY Danny. Huntress had come in a couple of times in previous years, but kind of as
yeah.
a group, kind of in the background, and she had wanted to spend a little time and get um, a good picture for herself. And it was really amazing to see. Danny was there, and she really supported her, and they got some great pictures together.
Yeah.
And I was really incredibly proud of her for having the courage to come into the set and to just spend that time in front of the crowds and stuff that are there, but really be able to focus on getting something that made her feel really good and really proud. And I thought she looked amazing. I thought
Yeah.
Danny's looked amazing, and the energy they both had together, you could really see that they were supporting each other. Um, and so it's that kind of, those moments are the ones that I always remember, where because the community is about giving back
Yeah.
to everybody.
Yeah.
um, and uh, I joke all the time, when I tell people why I work so hard there. um, One of the first, when I was there the first time, it was just me with a little smaller uh, background setup, and then I went to a bigger one. And I was felt like I was like busking on the subway. I was like trying to call people in because
Yeah.
nobody really knew what I was doing. They hadn't seen any of the pictures before. um, and so it was a little bit more of a hustle and more time to talk to people, which I kind of miss a little bit. It would be nice if I had just a little more time sometimes with people. um, but I saw the blacksmith tents working the coal forges, and they kept going and kept going, and they teach all day, and then
Yeah.
obviously they're having fun, and they'll go till 1 in the morning. And I said to
Crazy.
myself, I'm not gonna quit before those bastards quit, because I'm gonna outwork those guys. I know there's 6 of them over there, but I'm gonna do the work of 6 people. So
You definitely do it. Jimmy came on and said your pictures are the connective tissue of the event, and I love that idea. I love that sort of analogy because it is everybody. Oh, okay, actually, three things. Number one, I love the pictures of Sam and Danny. Those were, I agree completely. Those were beautiful pictures that really captured the two of them. I love the two of them, and it showed in that relationship. I love the idea. Here's something else I would love to see if you can find the time is a couple. you going out and being a part of the event and being in some of these. Find something you want to make. Go
Mhm.
in and take some pictures of you. I want to see you doing
Uh,
that.
I would probably do that at maybe like if there was like time for me to go to like one of the hammer ends or like the
Yeah,
silversmithing classes with Kurgs, something much smaller. I
yeah.
would probably be okay with that. I saw some cool pictures that uh, Keith camera took at one of the events recently, because I know he's got a great camera and he likes to just hold that camera out and just let the camera do all its work. Um,
Is that a little bit of shade there, buddy? Is that a little bit of shade?
well, because at that book that Matt put together for me, um,
Yeah,
that which was amazingly heartfelt. It was so great to see
yeah,
my work in a book form, which inspired me to kind of really get get my attention focused on the Maker Camp portrait book,
yeah.
um, which God, I did not realize the amount of time that would take.
I can imagine.
Um, and Jason Nix helped with that, the layout and stuff. He was instrumental in getting that done, and I cannot praise him enough for the time and effort that he put into that. But my thing is, if I'm at Maker Camp and I'm not on set, I'm missing the opportunity to get someone's picture. And maybe it's their first time at camp and it's the only time they've got to swing by.
Yeah.
And so I don't want them to be disappointed. I don't want anybody to leave and say like, I didn't get a chance to get a picture. I'm trying to streamline the system. We had a little bit of a hiccup this time because I was like, oh, we'll get the like the deli take a number
Yeah.
things. And I didn't realize that because sometimes I would lose power and I didn't realize it was on the same circuit. And so it would just reset to 0. So there were many times where the power would surge or something and it would reset and I wouldn't notice that. So I'll put it more towards the cart this time so I can actually see it if it does
Yeah.
reset.
Well, we just got to
Um,
get Ryan on set to take care of that. Patrick Ryan. He'll take care of all of that.
yeah.
But that again comes back to Jimmy's statement, which it really is the connective tissue in that this is the thing, the one thing that everybody there and it gets done and really brings everyone out. And so my first year, I went with my daughter. We only came on Sunday, and
Mm-hmm.
I looked over. I was like, "Oh, that looks like fun," and we never got one. And I wish we had, because all my other pictures next 2 years have just been amazing. So it is a huge thing, and it's a lot of fun. And looking at the book this year and getting the autographs of the people who were in it, I didn't have anything to autograph. I'm not saying anything here, but there
You're
was
in there.
no, I was not.
You've got to be in there.
Just give me a moment. I'll be okay. No, but again, it doesn't matter. I don't like that's whatever.
Are you
I
sure?
yeah. I just
I'm
wanted to tease you. I literally
I'm
just
gonna
wanted to tease you.
I'm gonna look through that tonight and see if you're in there.
So let's keep going about this. Like you've got some great ideas. Mark creates a great focal point at Maker Camp. Yes, I love that. Um, what things are you thinking about for this year? Like, do you start thinking, hey, maybe I'll do this type of thing? Because you said you'd like to change it up each year.
Um, yeah, I don't know whether I'm gonna um, maybe go back to a little simpler setup or because again the problem is it's a combination of the weather
Hmm.
because I'm shooting in a big wind tunnel,
Yeah.
so I have to really kind of protect the equipment and make it safe for people because and that's the other reason I went with the tarps because I could screw eyelets into the floor and the ceiling and then rope it in place so that
Right.
it wasn't just blowing back and forth. And I've lost a couple of lights, they blow over in the wind and I snap an umbrella and whatever. And so um, and I don't want anybody to get hurt, so I'm trying to be very safety conscious, put all the sandbags on it, tie it down if I can.
Yeah.
um, and so some of that is a limitation because I can't get much more um, equipment on the circuits or in the space. But visually, there's other ideas that I could do. But sometimes because I'm lighting for such a range of people, like I might shoot, you know, a 4-year-old child, and then I might shoot a group of 40 people. So
Right.
I need enough flexibility on that set to answer all those technical questions. And so in combination of all that, it can be a little bit
Yeah.
um, limiting, but it also really focuses me on the emotional connection. So again, all of that is a challenge, which is great because that pushes me to another level that way. And without restrictions, we're not creative. Like if I could do whatever I wanted to do, I would have too much to do. I would have too much in my head. Whereas if I can only use one light, then I go, okay, what's the best way I can use this one light?
I love that. So this is something I'm curious about, and this is also something I need to make perfectly clear. I do not know anything about this. So when I
Mhm.
ask this, basic, right? What kind of camera do you use? Why do you use that? Because I do know that there are like different types of there's mirrors and stuff.
Sure.
What's your favorite type and why?
Well, the camera I use is I use Canon pretty much exclusively for this kind of stuff. Um, I've shot in my career. I've shot every kind of camera that you can you shoot. I've shot you know all the film formats. 4x5, 8x10. 120, 220, twin lens reflexes, bellows, rail cameras in the studio, all that kind of stuff. Um, from an operator standpoint, I like the feel of the Canon in my hand. It's got a nice weight to it. Everything's where I want it to be. Um, for me, the Sony is more something I would apply to maybe shooting video. It's a little bit lighter. It doesn't quite feel like I need it because oftentimes I'm also shooting motorcycle stuff too. So,
Yeah.
and I might be in the mud, I might be in the rain. I need a level of durability. Um, and so the best camera that I can recommend someone to use is the one that feels good in your hand. Because if
Okay.
it doesn't feel good, even if it's better, like technically if the specs are better, you're not going to use it. It's just you're not going to pick it up. You're not going to want it. Doesn't not going to feel natural. Um, so everybody feels differently about what kind of camera they want to use.
Okay. And again, I mean, like most of us, I'm shooting 99.9% of my stuff on my phone.
Mhm. Sure.
Occasionally, I'll
Yeah.
have something else. I mean, I know it's not what you like because it is a point and click, um, but
On the trip, I ended up using mostly my phone just because it was easier. I could, I'd pull over on the side of the road instead of pulling the case out, getting the camera out, putting a lens on it. It was just pull the phone out. Here's a nice view, click, and I can get back on the bike and ride.
yeah, I mean that's what it is for most of us. And again, that comes down to the idea of as you're building something, how do you manage both aspects of it? Uh, this is where I've been really struggling. I'm supposed to be doing a book for a company, and it's on router tips and tricks. And I've
Mhm.
talked about this before. My problem, and this is what I've told my wife, is it's really hard for me to set up my phone to take pictures and then run over and do this and then come back.
Right.
Like it's so hard to. I need to get a better setup. I need to figure something out.
Well,
Um,
and that's one of the things, like, because I was playing around with kind of creating a little more, kind of a little more informal uh, style of like behind the scenes, kind of shooting some portrait stuff, shooting some product tips. Um, where I made like just like a really cheap diffusion frame and put a little material on from the art store, so I could shoot the kind of the really super shiny surface, just to kind of show people how simply it can be done if you're using the right tools. So I pulled some lights off the ceiling because I had some really bad lights in the garage that were really flickering and like they needed to be thrown away. But I'm like, let me just do this one thing. And the pictures, they're pretty good. They're decent for showing what the process can be. Um, but again, like the timing of it, trying to like set it up, think about your shots, how you're going to pre-plan it. It's so much extra time and effort that sometimes, unless that's the goal, unless you're creating content, unless that's what you're really focusing on, it adds so much time.
yeah,
Um, so if you're able to like drag a family member in to take pictures of it, that's an easier way to do it, maybe.
that's what I need to
And it
do.
gives you time with the family that way.
Well, I got my son in here at one point to take pictures, and he was in for
Mhm.
about 20 minutes, and then he goes, Dad, I got to go to the bathroom.
Right. And then
And
he never came back.
my son's 20. He was
Yeah.
probably 19 at the time. I was like, come on, man. I just need to know. So, one of the things that I'm switching tack. Sorry.
Mhm. Sure.
So one of the things as makers and as people, we run into challenges, right? There's always something that challenges us. Have you ever been in this instance where you're taking pictures of someone or something and you just can't get the right stuff? And how do you manage to work through that? Because it's not that you managed to do it, because I know that you did, but what's your thought process? How do you go through figuring out what do I need to do to fix this?
Um, well, I think like with photos, it's like why am I there? What's the reason that I'm there? So at for example, like if I'm doing portraits at the maker camp and someone comes up and they're really shy and you got to like bring them out, I'm there for that person. So I just need to find a place that emotionally to give them space to understand that I'm there for them and I'm supporting them. Um, so if it's not quite working out, maybe it's me, maybe my energy's off a little bit. So I have to reset internally because it's not usually a technical thing because that's relatively straightforward in that environment. Um, but when you're trying to connect with somebody, when you're trying to make um, that moment between the people where they feel like they can open up and talk to you and that you're actually listening to them and you're not giving them like a patter of all these
Right,
kind of preformed questions that you give to everybody,
right,
um, because that wouldn't be fair for me because my this is my opportunity to get to know something about that person.
right.
That's it might be the only time that I get to spend 3 minutes with somebody talking, um, and so I want to make that important. I want that person to know that they're important, and if I'm not making that connection, then I've got to use my experience because they're just coming to me as a person. I'm the professional in that situation. Um, and so sometimes it's just, I have to take a step back, maybe put the camera down, maybe just continue talking to them without the camera in my hand. Um, so it's like, what's the challenge? Like, or if it's in another
Yeah,
situation where it's maybe it's a technical challenge or your equipment isn't working, or you've forgotten a sync cable. So you're not able to do what you thought you were going to do. Um, then sometimes instead of just trying to push ahead because you're at that point you're pissed off and you're like, why did I forget this or why is this not
yeah,
working?
yeah.
And that is just negative energy, and so you just have to understand that you can deal with it later. You have to have your mind on the goal. um, and I one of the things I don't talk about a lot, but I'm really incredibly proud of is my time in California. I was part of the a search and rescue team in Marin County, so we did that for about 7 years. Um, and so we were out there volunteering our time to rescue people who had, maybe they'd broken a leg, maybe they'd,
Yeah.
crashed their mountain bike, maybe they'd fallen down a cliff, maybe someone was deceased and we had to do a recovery. Well, you have to remember why you're there. What's the
Mhm.
important part of this thing? And at the end of the day, I have to always have a picture that comes out and is usable by the client. And in this case, that's that person that's in front of me. And I want them to be happy. And so I just have to remember that if anything's failing, don't beat myself up on it. See where the problem is. Take a step back. You can think about it later and just reset.
I love that. All right, so I'm going to ask Greg's question in a moment, but I love
Mhm.
the idea. As makers, what we often do is we say we need to reset. You walk away from it. You need to leave the project because you're stuck on something. But I love the idea that you're looking at this and saying, I am doing something wrong. Personally, it's not my tools, it's me. I need to reset where I am to be successful. And I think that's something we too often look at and say, well, I'm not doing this right, I'm not doing that right, but it's not, I'm having a mental block or something that's keeping me from being successful. Walk away and come back. I love that. Um, Greg asked, have you ever said, no, I don't want to take that picture?
Um, hmm. I mean, I can't really. It depends on like if it's just going to be a bad picture,
Yeah.
then I might. If someone's asking me, if a client's asking me to take a picture, I have to understand what their reasoning is for wanting that. And maybe once I get to that point, I can understand, hey, this is a better solution to solve your problem. So let's not do it this way. So as a as a professional, I have to understand what they're coming to me and what they're actually asking me. They may be stating it in one way, but they may not be stating it
Right.
completely. They may not understand exactly because they have it in their head.
Right.
And I can say, hey, this is going to be a better angle for you. Or if we put a little more light in this, you're going to see this material a little bit better. And this is a highlight of the product that you're trying to sell. But I won't just say no unless, if it's something morally objectionable, obviously. But I'm saying that as a person, not as a
Yeah.
photographer.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. And I don't know where, which direction he was going, but I mean, you always have something you want to, you're looking
But I
at
mean,
yourself.
I did years and years as a product photographer, and sometimes it was volume. I had to take, you know, the shot count had to be extremely high that day.
Yeah.
And I know, Jeff Fader talks about his time in the metal shop and doing production work. And I think I can't stress this enough that if you have the opportunity to do some kind of production work where it's repetitive, it will make you an incredibly better craftsman than the person that does a different thing every single day. Because if you have to make 100 of one thing and they have to be exactly the same,
Right.
it teaches your body and your mind and the way to do that one thing, and you can do it without thinking about it. And
Right.
then you can move to the next thing. So you're not having to think about every single movement. And it gives you consistency, and you can judge the value of something that you just made versus the thing that you're making now. And
Right.
if you're not making it as good, then you start to understand why, and you get faster and faster and faster, and you can make those decisions so much quicker.
Right.
So you should listen to Fader, people. Fader's got a lot of truth.
Um, so Leah Houteling just asked, other than photography, what inspires him?
Um, Motorcycles. Something
What
I
kind of
love.
bike do you have?
I've got I'll start the smallest one I've got is a 230. It's a KLX.
Okay.
It's just for screwing around in the dirt and getting better on the dirt. Then I've got a 250 that I do like a little more longer stuff that like backcountry discovery route stuff. We've done some of those on there. We just did Texas, and I did that on my 450. And then I've got a 500 that's more of a street bike. Then I've got a 650 that's the BMW that I camped across the U.S. on. And then I've got a K100 LT that I'm stripped down to the frame that I've got to wire up and get that back on the road.
So my daughter hi Evan. So my daughter yesterday, my daughter is 18 in college. She saw some boys getting gas in their bikes, and they drove past them a couple of times, and she got a ride from one of them. I said, "What kind of bike was it?" She goes, "I don't know." I said, "Well, was it a crotch rocket? Was it a street bike?" She's like, "I don't know." Did you lean forward on the dude? Did you lean backwards?
Right.
She's like, "I don't know, Dad. I just want a bike. You're not getting a bike."
Okay, so I have to. So anybody out there, a lot of your states require a safety program. So they've got the Motorcycle Safety Foundation classes. Incredibly valuable to take those. They're usually a weekend or 2 weekends long. And then I always say that people should just continue their training. There's plenty of classes that will teach you more advanced skills. And I think education is definitely the way to go. I would not recommend just getting on a bike and figuring it out.
So here's the deal. I had a motorcycle when I was in the Navy. I decided I just wanted one. So I went into, this is how long ago it was. I went into the newspaper, and I went through the classified ads, and I found one for sale in Portsmouth, Virginia. I was stationed in Yorktown. No, it wasn't in Portsmouth. I don't remember where it was, but I had never ridden a motorcycle, and I decided to go buy it. Now, I rode the bike. It was raining. My friend, my roommate was in his Jeep behind me, and I had to go up a bridge that lifted at the top. So the top had a grate.
Right.
And I know that you understand this idea. Anybody who's ever been on a motorcycle, this is the worst thing.
They're terrifying. Grates are terrifying.
The wind coming up underneath you. I've never been on a motorcycle. It was the worst experience. I still remember it, and I still have dreams missing riding my motorcycle.
And what did you
I
end up
rode
with?
that thing. So it was a Yamaha
Okay.
650, and I think I bought it with 12,000 miles. Yeah, 12,000 miles. When I wrecked it, it had 31,000. I rode that thing up and down the East Coast. I got stuck in a rainstorm one day that I had a leather motorcycle jacket that drip dried for 3 days
Hmm.
afterwards. Three,
Yeah.
it was terrible. But I still miss it to this day.
Well, it's never too late to start
Um,
again.
so I'm going to tell you another funny story, but this one is not funny. I wrecked it. I'm going to admit this. I wrecked it drunk.
Hmm.
Um, I thought, yeah, exactly. Chad knows. I thought I was
Hmm.
okay, and I was not. I actually passed out. To this day, the what I remember is coming to with a paramedic over top of me and him saying, "You wrecked your motorcycle. It's on your legs. The blood flow has been cut off. It's probably going to hurt when we pick it
Hmm.
up. Do you want to hold my hand?" And he holds his hand down. And I just remember like just reaching up and grabbing hold and grabbing, and they pulled the bike off, and I screamed and passed out. The next time I woke up was them cutting my clothes off in the ambulance, and then I was in the hospital. So, it was kind of bad. It was my fault. Yeah. And to this day, we don't know how I managed to go through a brick wall on the other side of the bike when I had to have been on top of it riding it down the road because I had no road rash except on my shoulder. So the day of I had been planning on buying a bike. I'd been researching. I knew exactly what I wanted. And the day of my wedding, um, my best man's girlfriend's
Hmm.
father
Yeah.
died. And I said to my fiance, my soon to be wife, I was like, this is an omen. I was like, I just feel like this is the day of our wedding. This is happening. I was like, I will never ride a motorcycle. And I've come close a couple times, and each time she's like, "Hey, I'm not going to stop you, but this is what you told me." So, but I still have dreams
Yeah.
of it. I love riding
Yeah.
motorcycles. I
Yeah.
miss
No,
it.
it's for me. It's because I don't I'm not listening to anything. I've just got foam plugs in my ears. And I'm not talking to anybody. It's just me and my thoughts on the bike, which is like the reason I took that road trip is I needed to reset. And so the best way for me to do
Yeah.
that was just to get on the bike and just camp and just be alone for months on end. So um, I think each person who rides a motorcycle rides it for their own reasons, and so um, I ride it because I love the feeling of it. I'm a very
Yep.
conservative rider. I do not want to get injured. I don't want to break my bikes. Um, but it's a part of my life, and another thing I really value and enjoy, is uh, I really have a amazing relationship with my girlfriend, um, and so I always want to shout out to the people that support us doing what we do. I don't want
Amen.
to I don't want to
Amen.
ever take anybody for granted who's helped me and pushed me to be a better photographer, a better person. So
So, as we're getting there, I cannot agree with you more on that first. I want to make sure it's 9:01, and sometimes Instagram cuts us off at exactly an hour. Next week, I will have Morgan Hop from uh, Hoppin, whatever is. I can't say his last name. I'm pretty sure he's next week. He's going to be on with
mhm.
me talking about small shop stuff. And so from Onefinity. So everyone, it's going to be a great conversation next week. We're going to talk CNCs, small shop, feeling stuck in the shop, all sorts of stuff. I know it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, those guys are a blast.
Those,
Those guys are funny. The Infinity guys.
oh
Yeah.
god, yeah. Stone was here a little bit
Oh yeah.
ago. Um, yeah,
I almost wore my shirt that because they made shirts with their faces on it, so I have one for each one of them.
I love that. I love that. So, as we're coming up to this end
Mhm.
here, I want to know what would you say to somebody just getting started in photography? How would you sort of help them? What kind of tools would you need? What is your advice for them?
I feel like I would give them the advice that I wish that I had, that I wish the school I went to had educated me in some small way, but didn't. How to manage cash flow, how to run an actual
Oh
business. If
God,
you're
yeah,
going to be in this as a business, you need to understand the principles of business and how to invest properly, whether it's going to be in marketing or equipment. Your skills can only get you so far. And it's something I've,
yeah,
continued to struggle throughout my career is just, being able to find the clients that my work suits and that have um, a need at a time that I have available. Like, so, it's always
yeah.
you need to connect with a client when they need you. So I can connect with a client, a year earlier, 2 years before, but if they don't need me and then they don't, I'm not following up with them. So it's really those kind of things that, is applicable to all the businesses that everybody has. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
from a technical standpoint, um, it's like any artist. I think you need to find your own lane, your own vision about what drives you in the work. Um, some people, they don't have a technical ability. They don't have a brain for it, but they have a great eye. And so they can take great pictures,
Right.
but if they don't bring their technical skills up, then they're always going to be held back a little bit by that. Um, so kind of focus on the technical side of things. But like for me, I don't really enjoy hanging out with other photographers if they just want to talk about gear. Like I don't enjoy talking about gear. I know a lot about the gear I use, but I want to know why you take the pictures you do. Why are you motivated for the work that you
Right.
do? What inspired you? Those are the kind of discussions I want to have. But those are the same kind of discussions I want to have with everybody. So if you come on set and I'm taking your portrait, that's what I'm
Right.
going to ask you about. That's what drives you. What are your passions? What gets you up in the morning? Um, you know, or even like the bad things, like, what brought you here? Was it a bad thing or a good thing? Because that's the other thing I find on set is if I'm 100% transparent and honest with the people that are in front of me, then they're 100% honest with me. So if
Yeah.
I can see they're having a bad day, sometimes you just have to hug somebody and just give them an understanding that they're there and that, I'm not judging anybody. I just want them to feel that weight go off their shoulders and just be able to relax and be a confident person. So, and just give them a little bit of grace. And
Well,
so maybe that's
I
the thing.
think your pictures are. This sounds weird, almost a hug to the person because they are very. It is. It's very personal. You're getting a great shot of them. You're showing them it to themselves in a way that either they might not have seen themselves or that they feel is more laid bare. So in a way, you are, that's that very personal aspect of this. You're giving them that love, and I love that. I think it's important. It's great to know that you recognize it. And coming back to that other part, it's the thing that we discussed earlier, being able to articulate, know why something works,
Well, and
right?
I mean,
So
I appreciate you saying that because that's one of the reasons I'm, again, like I work so hard with it. Um, and
yeah,
I know that if I take a great picture that someone thinks is a great picture of themselves, it can give them something as a touchstone when they're having a hard time, when they're feeling, you know, beaten down by life. Maybe they look back at that and they remember how that felt, and maybe that helps them a little bit. And so hopefully we can just help each other, get through the tough times.
I have a picture of myself, Ryan, and Tony Pep, and it's a great picture. I love the shot, and we're just having fun and being ridiculous.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about.
yeah, for
So,
sure.
well, I appreciate you. Anything you want to end with
Let me see if
for the people?
well, I'll, give a shout out to, Austin, and, his family is always amazing to me when I'm there. Um, and, it's always fun to see Austin and his mom. I always enjoy getting their pictures together. Um, Jimmy and Patrick, I mean, you guys know how much work they put into that thing, and just
Yeah,
as people, how good they are. So I always want to, I always hate talking really about myself. I always want to try and help raise other people up because it's so much easier. It feels like to,
yeah,
give that support to somebody else because somebody's giving it to me as well. Um, And so I always want to give those three guys a, because they created the event, they put the time and the effort into
Yeah.
it, to build that event. And I just try to do the small part that I can.
I would, the small part is a major component uh, because it means so much to everybody. So I think that's huge, and we all appreciate it. I mean, you saw the number of comments over here that people appreciating your work. So I thank you. And it is, what, it is very difficult to allow the focus to fall on yourself. So I appreciate you taking the time with me to have that happen.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and then there's also one other person I want to shout out because, I, uh, a couple years ago, I took some time and I was just walking around in the morning and I decided to take a spin through the breakfast hall because there was, a bunch of people in there and maybe I wanted a little coffee or something. I can't remember. Um, and so I sat down and I met this guy. You probably know him from the timber framing and stuff, Gib. Everybody knows Gib. And we had a really great, amazing conversation for like an hour and a half. And there was some ball busting and there was just just a really nice, genuine human connection, which is, what I really value about camp. And I was like, oh, come back. I'm taking pictures. Maybe, you might have seen some of the black and white ones, come by and get a picture. And I think I had lunch with him or breakfast with him on, it was probably, it was either a Friday or a Saturday. And I didn't see him that day. And then I didn't see him the next day. And then I didn't see him on Sunday. And then like partially through Monday, because I shoot Mondays too, because I want the presenters to be able to get their pictures, and everyone's packing up and I don't want anybody to feel like they haven't gotten a chance. So that gives me a chance to kind of connect with the people that we're presenting and teaching. And so Gib kind of walks up and he's super introverted. And he's like, hey, I'm here. I don't want to be here, but I'm here. And I was like, because he's so shy, right? And so I took like probably 3 shots in. I'm like, that one's it. And I showed it to him, and it's one of my favorite pictures, in in the entire time that I've taken pictures. And so it's moments like that where someone who's super shy, but gives so much back to the community.
Right.
If I can take a picture that make them feel proud of themselves and really make that connection and have those conversations. And that's especially important when we lose a maker, when a maker passes away that I've taken their picture. It really it hits pretty deeply because I look at their pictures and I remember every moment I saw them on set and every conversation we had. And so I want those pictures that I take to be passed on, to their next generation, for them to talk about it with their kids or their grandkids and say, oh, this was Maker Camp and 20 years ago. So when they pass away, because we lost Pellegrino this year, and that was a real shock for everybody. So
So for a second, and I hate to say after we did that, I always have to say this. My daughter jumped on the Instagram. Hi, honey, I love you. I always have. I got to tell my daughter that
that's why we're here. We got to show the people we love them.
Exactly. Even when she asks me for money. So anyway, that it is hard, and I'm having those pictures makes it all the more special because those pictures are really special. So. All right, I'm going to end over on Instagram. Thank you, everyone on Instagram. Mark, again, thank you for being here. Evan said he's excited. You? No, I was very excited. All right, I'm going to hang up there, and then I'm going to disconnect over here too. So just saying goodbye to everybody on YouTube. Sean Cribb from New Zealand, thanks for coming in. Greg, thanks for coming down. Dave, I don't know if Joe is still on here. He was on for a little bit. Vanessa. So thank you.